Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Going Deeper. Thank you so much for joining us. And we've got a very special guest this evening. I'm going to welcome in a moment, and that's the Reverend John Good, and he can explain who he is. But if you are tuning in, please use the chat below this screen. And I would love to find out who you are, where you are watching from. And if you have any questions that come up during this half hour, 40-minute session, then do put them in and we will try our best to answer them. So, welcome. I hope you had a good day, enjoying the weather. We tried to have a barbecue in the rain and it wasn't too bad. But we're going to chat to John now. And John, not Jan, that's someone completely different. John is on the South Coast. I'm going to bring John on now. There we go. Hello, John.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very good indeed. Very good indeed. Absolute pleasure to be here with you guys. Thank you for the invite.
It's really, really great to have you with us. What's the weather like down on the South Coast?
Absolutely shocking. I went to... My nieces, they had their first birthday. They're one, celebrating that today, and they had gazebos up and all sorts, and it was still an absolute nightmare. So no nice weather on the South Coast.
Oh dear, I thought that's the only reason you moved there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Nothing no other reason.
Do you want to just tell those who are watching who you are and how we know each other?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'd love to make up some story like we met in a nightclub or something, Martin. But my name's John Good, and like Martin's already said, I am a reverend. I am married to a lovely lady called Mim, and we've got two boys, Dylan and Jake, and we've got a third on the way in July. So we're just about to be very, very busy. I trained alongside Martin at Spurgeon's College, although I don't think we trained at the same time, did we?
We were about 2 years difference between us. You were 2 years ahead of me.
Well, that's it. Until I had my year off, and I just needed to slow down a little bit. So we know each other from Luton, where Martin was a minister in Luton, and I was a youth worker, and then the associate minister of a church called Stopsley Baptist Church, and Martin was ministering just down the road from where I was. So that's how we got to know each other.
Yeah, and then I moved, and then you moved shortly after because you just couldn't live in Luton without me.
I couldn't. No.
And you moved down to Hamworthy, which is near Southampton?
No, it's near Poole. So it's,
Poole, sorry, I'm getting my places muddled up.
No,
I've been there, I just can't remember what was around. So it's near Poole. Why are you down there, apart from the sea?
So back in 2017, 18, something like that, I was wondering and praying into what was next. And a lady called Ali Bolton, who was a regional minister, she is really passionate about new housing estates and how churches can respond to the housing crisis by sending pioneer ministers into new housing estates. And in her mind, the advantage of it was that the pioneers ministers can be quite responsive to the community as it grows. It's one thing to send somebody into a community when the community is already well established. It's another thing to kind of grow a ministry alongside a community that is itself developing. So she identified this place in Hamworthy where 100 homes have already been built, and 1,000 more were going to be built right around me where I am now. And this opportunity came up. A local church, a local Baptist church, was dying, and it decided to split its assets and sell the manse. And the manse was to go towards a project in Hamworthy. And they were acting actually on a prophetic word that they'd had almost a decade earlier to do something in Hamworthy. And so together between Ali and this church that was dying in Poole, they made this kind of temporary position for a pioneer to move down into Poole, and here I am.
Yes. So how many years have you been down in Poole?
Well, I moved down in 2018, yeah. So I think I'm just coming up to the end of my first 3 years here.
And obviously, almost half of that has been COVID struck. So obviously, I'm presuming that's had quite a impact on what you've been doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it was a 2-stage move as well. So we actually ended up, it took us a year to move into our house, and then there was another year of COVID. And I guess my main reflection from COVID is that a lot of my friends are in established churches, and they at least have the advantage of holding a group of people together. The challenge is, how do you hold this group together? Whereas mine was, I'm still trying to get to know people. I'm still trying to, find friends and find relationships and wonder what to do. So yeah, we found that COVID, it really attacks relationships, I think, as well as the disease itself and the physical aspects of it. I really think it affects relationship itself.
Now, I'm guessing you've got other churches in Hamworthy. Yeah. So my question to you is, why have we got to the stage where we need people like you, pioneer ministers, to move into the area when there's already churches in the area? Why do you exist? Why did you not just stay in what was a very healthy and large and successful church? Why do you exist?
Well, I think that is a great question. There's a great Anglican church just up the road from us, and they are the only church actually in the only official kind of church in the area. Why do I exist? I think that there are 65 to 70 other churches that look quite similar to the church up the road. They meet on Sunday. They have, it's a typical Anglican service. They'll have liturgy, they'll have a talk, they'll have worship, those kind of things. But for me, I think it's all about trying to find new places where God is at work and starting from those places, instead of starting from an ecclesial minimum where we're saying, what are the basic ingredients of church and how do we do those? The question that I get excited about is, where is God already at work, and how can we build Christian community around what he's already doing?
So what has that looked like for you? Because you're not suddenly in an established congregation, are you?
No, I'm not.
You know, describe what you actually have been doing for the last 3 years.
Yeah. So I think there's two things really that I've concentrated on. One's been really incarnational. That verse in Thessalonians about where Paul says to his church, we loved you so much that we not only shared the gospel of God with you, but our whole lives as well. That's been, for me, moving into this neighborhood, that has been my primary kind of calling. It is, what does it mean to thoroughly engage with the neighborhood, try and get to know people, pray for it, become involved with it. And that work, I think, is largely relational. It's just about trying to get to know people. And if I'm honest with you, Martin, that side of things has been really difficult. It hasn't been an easy process. I think if we move to a council estate or somewhere like that, I think where people have need, then I think that need kind of helps relationship along. But actually, we live in a neighbourhood where people don't have as much need, and it's been really interesting to kind of work out, okay, what do people actually want? So yeah, that's one side of it, a kind of relational kind of side, trying to grow relationships. And then we've become we've established a project as well, which emerged from listening to people and listening to God in the area. We're surrounded by the water on 3 sides. So and the water is just a huge part of life here in Hamworthy. People, obviously, they make a living off it. They use it for leisure. They're on it all the time. As soon as the sun is shining, people grab all sorts of stuff and they're out in the water. But what we noticed was that there are a huge chunk of people down here who have their own water sports equipment, but there are also a large number of people here who don't have access to the water that's on their backyard, effectively. And so really, I was really inspired. I don't know if I might have even talked to you about this in Luton when I was in Luton, but I've been really inspired for years by the Edinburgh Tool Library. And I think the idea of sharing tools, sharing the stuff that we have, I just think it's great on so many levels. And for the Edinburgh Tool Library, they were sort of saying, why does everybody need their own power tool? Why do you need your own lawnmower? Why do we need to own all our own stuff? When actually it would be better for social trust, it would be better for the environment, and it's a better financial equaliser to begin sharing this stuff. So we started the Water Sports Library, where people can come, they can become members, and they can borrow and share from a community inventory, basically, of water sports equipment.
Wow, how has that gone? Have people had a real interest in that?
Yeah, I mean, we started it last year when Boris said, you're all right to go out and exercise with your family for as long as you want. So we thought, okay, let's soft launch it now as an experiment and see how it goes. And by October, I think we had about 180 people sign up as members. So we were just delighted because we begged, borrowed and stole the equipment. Well, we didn't steal it, but we got hold of the equipment any way we could. And there was a real groundswell actually from the local community, and it meant as well, we had stories where, off the back of it, we were able to go out with people, introduce people to the water, go out on little kayaking trips with people. We organised like a spiritual retreats, those kind of things, and loads of people, people who were struggling. I'm thinking of a particular mum actually who said that it was a real effort for her to just get up in the morning, reserve the gear and come down to the library. But when she did, she, whenever she returned with her kids, it had been a mission to try and, to gather all the stuff. But when she returned, she was just so full of life and saying, like, this has been so good for my mental health. I really struggle on a daily basis. This has been really life-giving for me. So, we've had some stories which have really touched us actually.
I know that I think it was last month you put a request on Facebook if anyone would want to come and do some, was it paddle boarding or something on the water that evening? It's like, well, yes, I'd love to, but I live in Horley, but never mind.
That's it.
I suppose one of my questions for you is, what if someone came to you and said, well, you've been in Hanwave for 3 years, so where's the fruit of your labour? Where's the baptisms? Where have you preached the gospel? Where have you talked to these people about, Jesus died for your sin? What would your response be to that? What are you trying to get across in this whole water sports library thing? Is it to convert people? Is it something more than that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Water Sports Library really is a vehicle that meets a social need. And you know what it's like. I mean, it takes a long time to gain trust, and I really think that when people can see that a social need is met, then I think that trust begins to emerge, and after that, I can begin talking to people, and I have already begun talking with people, sort of organically and more formally as well through events and that kind of thing about Jesus, and I'm thinking a bit more seriously about that now. But in terms of what I'm actually hoping to achieve, I really think it's about, I think that, the gospel reconciles, us to God, it reconciles us to the world around us, it reconciles us to each other, and it reconciles us to ourselves. And that would be, the aim, I guess, of the Water Sports Library, is that, a holistic gospel would be proclaimed, and that people's lives would be changed for all of those reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at your website the other month. And I just thought, this is such a kingdom project. It's not just a kind of oh, isn't this nice? It just, when we looked at the values and the things you were talking about and the idea of sharing stuff, it seemed such a kingdom of God kind of project. I mean, you said it takes time to build trust. Have you got a time scale that the Baptist Union have given you to get this all done in? They just said, you're there until you retire and just see what you can do, or is it a little bit more defined than that?
I mean, they've been really good. they've given me a fairly blank slate. So in terms of they're not expecting me to generate a congregational church, and I think that's been really freeing for me. I think because I think, I think that if the outcome was a congregational church, then I probably would have started differently. I would have started as a church planter. I would have organised a team, and I would have hired a school and got a bunch of musicians and preached every week. That would have been my approach to it. Whereas actually, I think really I'm being treated much more like a missionary, which is what I think we need actually for our society, is more missionaries to start from their local context. But I think in terms of timescale, no, I haven't gotten my funding's been extended, thankfully, for another 3 years. So that's been good. And so the Baptist Union obviously recognise that there is some fruit to what I'm doing, but it's slow and it's not going to come overnight. But I think that the kingdom of God grows at the speed of relationships. I really do believe that. And it takes time for those relationships to grow, and for people to be honest as well. Like, another really interesting thing is that people outside the church don't have any other language except for church to understand what I'm trying to do. So I'm really I'm trying to navigate language and not be some kind of not position myself as some kind of weird water cult leader, not some spiritual kind of water yoga guru. I'm trying to kind of navigate. Yes, I am. I'm a rev. I'm a Baptist minister. I am a Christian. Do you know what I mean?
I'm obsessed with water. So
well, exactly. So
that must be difficult, because when you're in an established church, you've got that, reputation. People kind of know. Well, you've got a nice big building, and you get invited to churches together stuff, so you must be okay. You're just some weird bloke that runs a water sports library and tries to strike up conversations. So it must be really difficult for you to seem legitimate, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a kind of grieving actually to this when we moved into the estate. I actually grieved the kind of office of minister. And people, no one cares what I think about the Bible here. No one cares, what I believe or how fast I'm growing or what I don't know. People will come to me with questions. When you're a minister, you know what it's like, Martin. You know the answers, and so people can come to you and expect some wisdom and all the rest of it. But actually, there has been a real grieving of that, and I'm coming to terms with how to recycle and upcycle some of the skills that I learned in Stopsley and put them to use in different places. But I think the muscles that I'm trying to grow are the muscles that are about trying to build genuine theological connections between the water and God, So looking at areas like mental health, looking at physical health, well-being, looking at, ideas around sharing, those kind of things as ways in which to build the gospel,
So you said a few moments ago that you think society needs missionaries, not church planters. So within, my context as a church minister of a Baptist church, how does that? What do you reckon that means for us? We've got an opportunity to do something new, to make a new start. We're not necessarily going to have a Baptist pioneer minister move into the area. So what does that mean for us to be missionaries in our context rather than church planters?
Well, I think I want to say that I'm pro church planting. Like, I'm not, I have nothing. I don't think I haven't got the silver bullet or anything like that. But the difference between the two things are, for me, is that I think with church planting, you start with the outcome in mind, and that is some kind of congregational church. And whereas with pioneering, for all the baggage that surrounds the word, the idea is that you would start more from listening to where local people are at, and let that guide the theological questions then that you begin to answer. Now, the difficulty that I think people like you in established ministry experience, and we had this in Stopsley even, and we planted missional communities, is that it's so difficult to let go of people. It's really, really hard to say, look, go and, like, if your focus is mental health, go and focus on mental health. Go away for like 6 months and just listen to the area. Don't be involved in the congregation. Like, come back and feedback, all that kind of stuff. We love you. We support you. We want you to go. But we really want to hear what that, that context is saying from God to us as a church. But actually, the cost of doing that is that you're not going to have them on the worship rota. You're not going to have them on the preaching rota. You're not going to have them, fulfilling roles within the church life that do need doing. And so there is a real cost, I think, to sending out missionaries.
Yeah, and in some ways, for doing what seems to be very little. Where's your congregation? Where's your church building? Where's your worship group? Whereas you're saying you just need to go with no specific end in sight, just to go and listen and try and meet the needs of society. And that must be really difficult for a church with finite resources to do that.
Of course. And I think, I've come, even Stopsy thought of themselves, and they do think of themselves, and they're a fantastic church as a sending organisation. But it is just there's a scarcity about the whole thing, that actually resources are finite, and we're living in a culture, and you must be acutely aware of this, that we're a similar kind of age. And I think our lives have been characterised by acute and tectonic church decline. Even in the time that we've been alive, it's been an absolutely enormous factor in our ministries. And so there is a natural sense of fear that surrounds that. Well, if I send out another family away from the church, are we going to lose them? And what if they don't bring me back that fruit? Do you know what I mean? Like, are we contributing into this kind of, the church decline? But God is bigger than that, and He's already at work in other places.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure Jesus says something about the fact that He builds His church, not us. Amen. But it's so difficult for us to let go of control. Do you think we have a different view of this in terms of missionaries that we send abroad? Do you reckon we have different expectations to what we have of church planters in this country?
I think so. I think the main distinction is that generally when you send a missionary abroad, I think the expectation is that Christianity hasn't reached that place yet, or if it has, it's kind of weak, and they can kind of bolster the kind of sense of, bringing the light to that city or that area or whatever. Whereas actually, I think here it's a post-Christian society, and so we have experienced Christianity, we have gone through it, and we've come out of the other side. And so we need people who are willing to listen to people who actually are on the other end of a Christian society. And I think it might be a slightly different skill set.
Yeah, and possibly more hard work coming.
Yeah.
Do you reckon there's a lot of baggage with church that you need to try and unpack and to move aside for people to connect?
Yeah, and I think, there's a lot of baggage in me. I think, as about who God is and what church is and could be. That also probably doesn't help people sometimes, my own baggage. And part of the journey, I think, is owning that and being honest and upfront. And I think part of it is trying to have an honesty about where you're at with people, even if they're not Christians. And I think for so long we've grown up with the idea that Jesus is an answer to people's lives, whereas actually even me and you have very serious questions about life itself. And we've been following Jesus for a fair number of years now. and I kind of think people warm to a sense of vulnerability and a sense of honesty, not like this chap's determined to convert me, and that's the end of that kind of thing.
Yeah. My wife, who's very wise,
Yep, she is.
Yeah, relationships are key. Genuine, authentic relationships also need to be able to see where God is and what He's doing and join Him in that. And that's right, isn't it? There's a big difference between building relationships and trying to convert someone. And do you feel that through the work that you are doing in Handworthy, it's because you've got no end in sight, that's you're a bit freer to try and pursue relationships?
Yeah, I do. I do feel a bit freer to. I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult again to lose that sense of agenda as well. Like I think that what I would love, I think, is to feel that evangelism is actually a two-way street, because Jesus talks about himself being the light, but he also talks about like giving the light to us as well. Do you know what I mean? And so there is this. I believe that when I walk around Handworthy, when I talk to people on the water, it's not like I alone have the light and I am going to give you the light. Do you know what I mean? I really do believe that some of that is already inside of people, that God is already ministering inside of people in the same way that He's already highlighting places that he's active in. And so evangelism really is conversational and relational, and so I am trying to get to know people through this through this project and get to know them and their experience of God and spirituality. Before I start really, really laying on thick.
So let's just imagine that we gave you a church. So there you go. You've got a couple hundred. Yeah, it's a pleasure. You can have mine.
I appreciate that.
Here's a church, got a couple hundred people. How would your experiences and your thought processes you've been going through affect the way you would lead that church, particularly in terms of outreach? Now, I don't know if you'd ever go back to leading a church in that sense, but if you were to, how would that change the way that you would approach outreach and how you define it, I guess?
That's a great question, isn't it? That is a great question. I think one of the first things I would think about is, how do I put my money where my mouth is? And I think that the theology of mission is really well established within churches. I think there's a really strong sense of, we're a mission organization. We understand that God is already alive and active in the places that we are in. I would want to see the budget follow the theology. So if I was a church minister, I would want to look at the finances, and I would want to say, okay, how are we going to somehow operate a system where we really are sending people out and we're giving them cash to get on with the job of missional listening and missional acting. And I would probably look to trying to bolster giving through other enterprises as well. I'd probably want to be using the church building to generate some more funding so that we can send more people out, I think. So that's one thing. I would certainly think of that. How that would be one of my questions. How does my money follow my mouth?
Yeah. Are you thinking sort of entrepreneurial kind of projects, or are you thinking that and other things?
Yeah, I'm mainly thinking. Yeah, I mean, I guess the entrepreneurial question is live for me personally. Yeah. So I'm trying to think about what a sustainable ministry look like. And so, yeah, I think there's some great stories coming out in the Baptist Union now. Churches running fish and chip shops and cafes and all sorts of bits and pieces. And I get really excited by that. And yeah, so I think, I read a book a while back called Chocolate Wars. Have you ever read Chocolate Wars?
No, it's not on my reading list, I must admit.
Well, in terms of entrepreneurial, I can't even say it. You know the word.
Yeah.
that it was a blinding bit, really good. It was about the Quakers though, but it was when they started Cadbury's and Bourneville and Rowntree's, and all of those guys were all Quakers, and they were all competing when they first started up. But it was all about what could be accomplished by wealth creation, I think. And a lot of it was still slightly different to where I'm at, I think, at the minute. But a really inspiring example of how of the power of what can you do once you get some cash coming in that's different to just giving.
Yeah. And once again, like with your water sports library, it's about doing something that meets a need, but exhibits such kingdom values.
Yeah,
it is reason why, but also in how it does things as well, which is really, really exciting. Just pick up Sheila said, the parable of the shepherd leading the 99 sheep to seek the one that is lost come to mind. It's hard to let people go, but if it will lead one to Christ, then it's worth it. Do you feel that's maybe kind of a bit what it is for you, just giving up that congregation to go and get the lost?
Yeah, well, I think I think that's a great point, Sheila. And I think that I think that when you're in a normal church, I think that you've got an opportunity to kind of, you're trying to cater for the needs of everybody. Whereas I think that once you release people, you can release them into their passions and their giftings and their hobbies a little bit more, maybe. And once you can do that, then they can creep into the nooks and crannies of society, which is quite an exciting journey to get towards your, the one sheep.
Yeah. Well, John, time is running out, so it's been really great talking to you. And we've had a few people tuning in, and then hopefully more will watch it on catch up. That's a great thing about YouTube, is that you can watch me whenever you want, and John as well. But obviously, you're tuning in for me, not for John. So thank you. All the best with the imminent arrival of child number 3. That's really exciting. And our thoughts and prayers are with you. I know what it's like having 3. So, have fun. So, no, thank you so much, John. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Do please like this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. And if you're really feeling brave, do share this on social media. And that would be amazing. And I'm not sure if we will have a Going Deeper next month because it's August. Oh, no, it's not. It's July. So we probably will. I don't know. We'll find out. I'll let you know. But do keep an eye out. So, thank you, John. And thank you, everyone. And, have a good evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.